It's because I don't want to put you on the spot. You get what I'm saying?
No, it's alright. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. The Quran obviously talk about wives,
Yeah.
and the Hadith give a little bit more details. And I take these scriptures, and then I say, okay, I have to wait and see how it's gonna be. I don't know a lot. I can't talk about it a lot, but the best thing to do is wait and see.
The problem I would have, and this is a Christian concept as well, so I'm just going to utilize Christian concept, right? When we think of marriage in a Christian concept, it's because of what Adam and Eve were. In the Garden of Eden, you have Adam and Eve, all right, and then the first married couple. The reason why God created one man and one woman is because they were to unify and become one flesh, and not only that, but to create life, right? When we get to the Islamic paradigm, right, we see in Surah 4, verse 24, right, that you can take a sex slave, right? I'm not saying you personally can do it, but Islam does condone sex slavery, right? So, but it also says in the Quran, obviously, you are to be married to a wife, or to multiple wives, right? The problem is, if Allah is saying that marriage is sacred, and you are to be married, and going outside marriage is a problem, why is he on the other hand saying that you have sex with multiple wives in heaven, and that you can take sex slaves? Why is that permissible in Islam? It seems like a contradiction. Do you see what I'm saying?
What you say? Why is it permissible in this world? Do you mean?
What I'm saying is, if marriage is sacred, as I said before, if marriage is sacred, right,
why is
Allah
outside marriage?
Yes, because Allah is allowing adultery. He's allowing sex outside of marriage, and He's allowing multiple partners.
The only thing I could say about this is that the Quran is talking. When you wanna go with the Quran, you have to consider your time, and the circumstances in your time. So in that time, a lot of wars used to happen, and Muslims would go to a lot of war. And when they win, they get women, and they get the men, and the men become like prisoners. So the way to go there with that is for every Muslim to keep one prisoner. It's not because he's a slave, no, because there is no government that could take these war prisoners to somewhere, like a prison, or keep them in detention somewhere.
Well,
that's why.
Bear in mind,
for the sex, I think maybe the Quran allowed Muslim fighters to sleep with their female captives.
Well, it wasn't just, that was a point I was making, it wasn't just the Quran that says that. It's also Hadith. For example, there's a battle in Hunayn, right? And basically, long story short, I'll get a Hadith.
This is what I'm saying.
Basically, Muhammad's men go on an expedition to Ortos, and he goes and he sees excellent Arab women. That's what the verse describes. It's not me saying this, right? He goes and finds them, and they take them captive, right? These are married women, by the way, so they have partners, but their partners are from a polytheist sect who are attacking Muslims, right? So they were wrongfully taken, right? It wasn't the women who were attacking the Muslims, by the way, it was the men. But the people related to polytheists were taken, and their women were raped. They were sexually raped. And the reason why I say they were sexually raped is because, think about it, these were married women. Okay. They weren't women who wanted to engage in sex with other partners because they were already betrothed to one person. So what I'm saying is, if Allah is consistent, He would say, look, don't go out, don't capture sex slaves, instead marry one wife. But He's not consistent. He's saying you can take whoever you want, just don't commit adultery, which to me makes no sense, because if marriage is sacred in Islam.
First of all,
if marriage is sacred in Islam, my point is, if marriage is sacred in Islam, then I see no point in Allah telling people to go and capture sex slaves, to go and capture other people. You see where I'm coming from? If marriage is sacred.
I see. But first of all, John, if you're against this is what the Old Testament say.
No, it doesn't.
You have God telling Moses to go and kill the men amongst the Amalekites. I don't know which people they were. Kill the men and the women and keep the little girl.
I feel like this is a distraction, but we can go through that if you want.
You have that in the Old Testament. God did command that.
God did not command rape. Sorry, we've spoken about this before. You keep getting it wrong.
It's in your book anyway. It's in your
book.
No,
what is in my book?
That's not my point.
No, but that's a point you brought up. You can't
I
then
wanna
say
answer,
that's
I
not
wanna
my
reply
point.
to the point you were saying about
But
taking
you
women as
brought up
captives.
Numbers 31:18 because the reason why is because obviously there's no other argument that Muslims have got.
Well, it's everybody knows. Everybody knows. Before Jesus, the Bible and the Jews, they used to, when they fight, they used to kill the men and take the women captives and have sex with them. We all know this.
Again, as I've explained to
And
you
it's
before, and I've done this
sanctioned by
continuously.
God.
Sorry.
Sanctioned by
I've
God.
done this with you continuously, right? And I've done this with Muhammad Ajab, right? For example, I even mentioned to both you and Muhammad Ajab, right? There's a passage in the Bible which clearly says you are to marry the woman you captive. That's Numbers 21 and 22.
It doesn't say marry. It says keep them for yourselves. Okay,
No,
you
it
wanna
says
say marry?
it says
Okay.
to marry. It literally says that she has to pare her nails for a month after she is taken captive. She has to pare her nails, shave her head for a month, and then you are to
do you
marry
know-
her.
do you
And
know-
then she becomes your wife. I keep
Do you know-
telling you this, and you're not listening.
Okay. Do you know that this could be the same thing in Islam when it says
No.
what your right hand possesses?
Why would it be the
Because-
same thing?
Because if you get a woman like that and you sleep with her and she gets pregnant and have your child, then she becomes your wife automatically.
No, but the fact is you've gone and slept with her, Saeed. So
She's the mother of your children,
No,
man.
but
What
you've
you gonna
raped.
do? What you
Saeed,
gonna do?
Saeed, you've raped her. So if she becomes the mother of your children, Saeed, because you raped her, that's still not her problem. She's still a rape victim that you've taken. That doesn't make it good. You understand where I'm coming from?
Anyway, I believe, even though
still a rape victim.
even though she's what your hand right possess, but you still cannot force yourself on her.
No, you
That's
can't.
what I believe.
What do you
That's
mean?
I
What do you
believe.
mean? What you believe?
Well, if she doesn't want to, then what can you do?
Then
You
she can't be
force
what
her.
your right hand possesses. How could she be what your right hand possesses if you can't
She's
possess
just a
her?
war captive, you know. You don't have.
If she's a war captive, then did she choose to come with you willingly?
what do you do?
Sorry,
with war
please
captive?
think.
What do you do with war captive?
Exactly. You take them captive.
Yeah.
Obviously. So what are you doing with the captive after that?
Yeah. Do you know what Salah ad-Din did with them
I don't care what.
when he beat the Christians?
Sorry, I don't.
Salah ad-Din.
Sorry, I don't
When he
care
won,
what Saladin
when
did.
he won, Salah ad-Din, when he won,
Right, I don't get it.
all the Christian captives, some of them ransomed themselves, and those who didn't have money, Salah ad-Din paid for them.
Yeah, but Saladin
gain their
also
freedom.
took Christian slaves, yeah, who were called Janissaries. He took them and he enslaved them, and so did many during the Ottoman Empire. So what are you talking about? Have you heard of Janissaries?
He did what?
Have you heard of the Janissaries?
No.
Janissaries were basically Christian captives who were taken captive. These are young men and
By
women.
Salah ad-Din?
Well, not by Saladin. I think it's by another Ottoman emperor. But long story short,
Well,
they
there
were
are
taken
some evil
captive.
people somewhere, you
Yeah,
know.
but these were Muslims. They
everywhere,
weren't some.
you know.
They weren't some of you people. These were Muslims. What I'm saying. Have you
there
heard
are
of
some
Ottoman
evil people
Empire?
among Muslims.
Right,
Some
so
evil
during the-
rulers, you know.
Sorry,
But Salah ad-Din, he did what Islam said.
Right, this was during the Ottoman Empire, which was basically predominant Muslim control over basically most of Europe. Right? During that time, Muslims took Janissaries, these are basically groups of Christian boys, and made them soldiers to fight against other Christians.
Does that mean Islam says that? Islam doesn't say that.
It's not.
That's against Islam. That's against Islam.
Again, it's based on what?
For
Who's the
example,
of Islam?
what the Ottoman,
Because you're telling me
what
that
the
you
Ottoman
can
Empire,
take sex slaves in Islam. No, you've said yourself that you can take sex slaves in Islam. So it's permissible to take sex slaves in Islam.
Well, if we go with the teaching and the spirit of Islam, Islam is not a religion that allows you to force your will on others.
Then why does Surah 4?
If a woman fell
Why does
captive,
Surah 4
if a woman
34 say, whatever your right hand possesses, they're your captives, you can take them as sex slaves, bro?
Okay, the woman said no. What you're gonna do? You can't force a human being.
They're your property. They're your property. So it says whatever your right hand possesses. And a sex slave is somebody who hasn't chosen willingly to have sex
Some
with
female
you. Otherwise, they'll be married.
Some female couples are willing, you know.
But if they're willing, then they'll be married women. But they're not married to you. They're sex slaves. They're called sex slaves by Allah.
They're married, you know. Okay, they could be married, but why did they come to fight the Muslims then?
The women weren't fighting. As I explained to you before.
These men, they brought their women.
Sorry,
Why
the
they bring their
hadith-
woman with them?
The hadith clearly says, right, there was a battle in Autas where Muhammad's men went and he went to people called excellent women, and these people are married to polytheists who are attacking the Muslims, right? Muhammad's men, went to go and take them women captive. The women weren't attacking the Muslims, it was the polytheistic men. But they killed the polytheistic men and took their married women. So it was actually Muhammad's men who initiated the rape of female slaves, and that's true.
All right. John, anyway, these practices, they are confined to their time and place. We're different today.
How can you say we're different today when the Quran is supposed to be a clear book and a guidance to all mankind?
Today there is Muslim governments and there are prisoners. If Muslims go to war, for example, and they get war captives, they're not going to let everybody have somebody.
Look,
No, the government will look after the prisoners.
Yeah, I understand Islam
So
today.
there is no slavery.
Yeah, I understand Islam
Slavery
today has
today
a
is
Jewish.
finished.
Are you going to allow me to finish? So I understand Islam, like Muslims, not Islam, because Islam is obviously made up by Muslims, right? But when it comes down to it, Muslims have their jurisprudence. They do things by whatever book, and that includes the Sharia, which isn't, by the way, isn't really based on the laws of the Quran. It's just an amalgamation of laws they've made up. Right, but what I'm saying is, right, inside the Quran itself, when you read the book itself, it isn't claiming that there is a law or a way to go about doing these things. You can take sex slaves of your own volition, and it's for you today.
John, obviously, you don't know Islam.
I know a lot
I think
about it.
every law in Islam is a law, every rule is a rule. And
Well, think about it, it's your God's
there
word. It's your God's word law.
The laws in Islam, there are two. One is one law is you have to do them all the time.
Right.
They don't change. Like praying 5 times a day, like zakah, like being nice. This
Yeah,
don't
the
change.
5 pillars of faith. So there's not just 2 rules,
There
Saeed,
are-
there's
the
5.
other laws is optional. You could do them if they want. It depends on your judgment.
Can you be a
The lead-
polytheist and
the
believe that
judgment
Muhammad
of
is
the
God?
lead- Sorry?
Can you be a polytheist and believe that Muhammad is God?
It's not like that. It's not like that.
Can you believe
I'll
that?
give you- I'll give-
Can
this-
you believe that Ahmed Gulam is a prophet Messiah? Can you believe that?
Let me finish my point.
You can't believe in that.
No, it's not the same. It's not the same. Look, for example,
But these are Muslims. They came to be Muslims just like you.
These laws about the war, your right hand possessor and captives, and
Right.
these are optional. You don't have to do them. Optional.
According to who?
They are. You don't have to have a war captive. You could let them go if they want. It's
No,
not
but
a must.
according to who is subjective. According to who?
Like jizya as well. Jizya, you don't have to do jizya. You could.
You do. It's a command from your God. It says in
you could-
Surah
you could
929
say, no,
that you are to go to
you're
the
not
people
gonna
of the
take-
book and to
it's not a must,
fight
it's not
them.
a must.
To fight them, you can read it yourself, and it can go on screen. Well, you are to fight the people of the book until they either feel subdued or pay jizya.
Brother, look.
So you're to do that until we
ask
pay
me.
you.
I know about Islam. Ask me.
I'm going to the book. Why would I ask you when the
I
book
know.
says it's
I
clear?
understand Islam. This
Your
law.
God says your word is clear, though. Your God says His word is clear.
This jizya law is not a must. It's optional. You cannot do it if
Your
you don't
God's
want.
saying that you must do it. That is a command for you today. Surah 929 clearly stipulates
That's an
you are to go
option.
out and you're to fight the people of the book,
God's
bro.
giving you the choice. If you need the
He
money,
really isn't.
if you need the money and they have to pay, take from them.
It doesn't
But if
say that in that verse, not even in the ayah itself.
Today Muslims are the richest
The
people,
surah.
the richest nations in the world. We don't need your jizya.
Right, that's irrelevant.
We don't need.
And you're saying you're the richest ones in the world, you're not.
We give you money.
Saudi Arabia is the richest country you have got.
The West live.
Your other countries
the
are in
West,
conflict with war because you keep on
the
fighting
West,
the Shia.
The West live
You've got to
on.
know about your history, man.
The West live on the wealth of Islam and
You're
Muslims.
nervous, you're too nervous. Speak slowly.
The West. Oh, you see all this? You see all this?
Slowly,
This is
slowly.
from Islamic wealth.
No, it isn't. How would
Islamic
how
money.
would British Commonwealth
Islamic
have anything
money.
to do with Islam?
Huh?
How would British Commonwealth have anything to do with Islam? Other than we took it from you. Other than that,
The economy of the West, Europe and America would be a lot less without the Islamic money.
what do you mean Islamic money,
Do you know how much?
bro? Do you know anything about
Do you know how
history?
much Saudi Arabia alone?
When
owns?
the Ottomans were
Saudi
literally
Arabia
crushed,
alone.
right?
Do you know how much they own of that?
Charlemagne had a bunch of wealth in Europe. What are you on about?
Do you know how
You don't know
much?
anything about
Do
history.
you know how much Saudi Arabia alone owns of the American economy?
Yeah,
8%. Saudi Arabia
8% is quite small.
8%.
But even then, that's just due to oil prices, which happen in Saudi
United
Arabia anyway.
Emirates another 8%. Qatar another 8%.
What do you mean
So
another 8%?
half of
Have you got
America
those
is-
statistics right, sorry? Or are you just making them up?
It was nice talking to you.
I mean, are you just making up statistics right now? Is that it?
We got around to
Are we going to beg the question right now?
Let's go back to
Seriously?
the topic.
No,
Islam-
Islam did not create the
You do
wealth
not-
of the Commonwealth of the Western world. No, the British did. That's why there was a British Empire. Do you even know about the first anything about history? You know anything about history?
History. You don't know
Islam,
history?
what?
Okay.
What did you say? Islam?
No, you said that Islam built up Western economy. I'm saying no, it didn't. The British did. The British Commonwealth did, and the British Empire did.
Okay, Islam don't have any economy. Okay, not
I don't know what it has to do because the conversation.
not a problem.
Sorry,
It's not a problem.
sorry, 1 minute.
Islam-
Sorry, the
Islam-
conversation was about
You go to
sex
school in
slave in
Doha.
Islam.
Okay, don't
Right?
worry,
The conversation was about sex slave
No
in
gas,
Islam.
no petrol, no oil in the Muslim country. Okay, don't worry.
okay.
Did I say that?
Okay,
Okay, so now we're condescending.
Okay, it's okay.
Because obviously,
It's not the point, it's not the point.
I deny the
We're talking about
fact
jizya.
that the Islamic world has fossil fuels,
Muslims
which
own half
I've
of
never
London.
denied in my life.
Half of
by the way.
London is
We
owned
don't
by
have oil,
Muslims.
we don't have gas. Okay. All economy is from London, okay?
I never said that. Never said
let's
that.
go back
But
to the
primarily, when it comes to what built up
So-
the Commonwealth
so
of
what are you
England,
saying? You're saying
what I'm
Islam
saying
is
is,
bad?
well, if you allow me to finish,
Yeah?
what I'm saying, primarily the Commonwealth of England was built up by the British Empire. You don't know
British
anything about
Empire.
it.
Do you know British Empire? You know history?
But anyway, this
You know
conversation is
history.
going nowhere because this conversation was not about the British Empire. He brought up the fact that
No,
the
you are
Islamic world.
critiquing- you're
British
brought
Empire, they only have
You
the
brought up-
technology.
you
They
brought
only
up-
have the technology.
Sorry,
They don't have the
Saeed.
resources. They don't have the resources.
You brought up the Commonwealth. I didn't. I was talking about the
Okay,
Quran.
let's go back. Let's
You
go back
believe
to
in
the
God, you believe
Quran.
in
Yeah,
God.
that's
You
what I'm
believe in God.
doing. Let's go back
You're
to the
Christian.
Quran.
Christian.
You're Christian.
Bro, you're interrupting the conversation. I'm having a conversation with my man
but
here,
so you
right?
have to
So
make
if you
a
want to
point.
stay on the topic,
John,
that's
it's getting
fine.
cold. It's getting cold.
Yes, it is
Let's
getting
wrap
cold.
up.
I'm cold right now, brother.
Let's wrap up. Look,
Right,
you
we
don't
will
know
wrap
Islam.
up. But what I'm saying is,
Islam
right?
is the religion of
Oh,
mercy.
sorry, allow me to finish and you can answer, right? The point I was making, right, is that your God allows for men and women to be married, right? My point was, this system is hypocritical in your religion because the fact is, if you're going to say something's marriage, then you're going to say there's sacredness to marriage, correct? If there is sacredness to marriage, then why would your God allow for sex slavery, as I've just proven, shown from Hadith and from the Quran itself, and why would he allow for a paradise full of a harem of women to have sex with? If adultery was such a crime to him and marriage was so sacred to him, why would he allow that? That was the point I was trying to make.
Look, he allowed that. That's only in a war context. It's not inside.
No, you didn't hear what I said, bro. This is not,
You cannot have.
sorry, I was talking about starting from the Quran and the Hadith, and even from passages that mention heaven. So I'm talking about afterlife. I'm not talking about before. I'm talking about afterlife, right? In the afterlife, you're allowed to have 72 virgins to deflower
They
at
are
will.
wives. They are wives.
doesn't say they're wives.
There is no right hand possession.
No, you don't captive them, but it doesn't say they're wives. It doesn't say
They
that.
are wives. Yeah, they are wives. Yeah.
Again,
The Quran said they are wives. Yeah.
the Quran doesn't say they're wives. It does say it doesn't say they're captives. It doesn't say they're wives.
The Quran said زوجناهم. We coupled them. Zawaj, you know, marriage means zawaj. Zawaj
Yeah.
means marriage.
Well,
Zawajnahum. So
My point is, what would be the point of the sacredness of
let's
marriage? No, I want to wrap up, but I want you to understand this point, right? In the Christian concept, right, marriage is between a man and a woman. The reason why is because ultimately, if these things do not align together, you have situations where there's adultery, which is basically a man finding multiple partners and sleeping with them, and you also have STD spreading, right? You also have like multiple sexual partners. You also have, for example, multiple kids, multiple children to look after, right? In Islam, right, if marriage is sacred, that was my point, if marriage is sacred, right, why is it that you can sleep with whoever you want and that not be called adultery? Why would that be the case if marriage is sacred in
like
Islam?
what you do today? Like what? Like what?
So I'm saying,
There is no captive.
you as a
no-
Muslim,
no
yeah, but you as a
female
Muslim,
captives,
you can have 4 wives, can't you?
4 wives.
Yeah, you can have 4 wives.
Yeah,
Why,
yeah.
why not 1 wife?
Because throughout Islamic history, Muslims used to go to war. Men used to go to war and they died. They leave wives. So it's allowed for these men who come back to marry these women, these widows, to take care of them. It's a solution. It's a solution for these widows, you know, because there are more women in the society now because of war. So this is a solution.
Sorry. Muhammad himself had 11 wives and none of them were widows. None of them. So what are you on
Some
about?
of them were widows.
Some of them. Which one? Name one. Was Aisha a widow?
Do you know their names?
I don't know the names of heart, no.
Salama was a widow. some of them were divorcees.
They were divorcees, right?
Yeah.
So these were divorcees, and basically one of them you mentioned was a widow.
Widow, yeah.
Right, but
With
you
the
said
children also,
you
so
said the reason for marrying multiple wives was to solve the problem of widowship. That obviously didn't, because he only had one wife that was a widow. The rest of them were divorcees.
yes.
So obviously it's not solved then, is it? And that's just talking about Muhammad.
It is
the
solved.
Quran
You know why?
stipulates
Because
that you as a
do you
Muslim
know-
are to take 4 wives, and it doesn't stipulate that they are supposed to be widows. It doesn't stipulate at all. You've made it up.
Well, Muslims, Muslims always go to war, and what do you expect? They die.
You know Muslims always go to war.
Yeah.
You said to me
Jihad,
earlier on.
jihad, you know.
Yeah, I understand. But you said to me earlier on, you've got to apply the context of now into the narrative of the Quran.
So now.
So what do you do with that verse now? Because it's saying you can marry multiple wives. So what do you do with it now?
This is the reason behind allowing 4 wives. That's the reason, because men died, and they left widows, and it's not allowed for these widows to commit fornication. So Islam allowed them to marry a man who have a wife.
But that would be worse than fornication. I want you to get the point.
I don't want to argue with your Christian mentality.
Said, you're not getting the
You have
point.
a Christian mentality.
Said, understand, there's no sacredness in marriage if you can just marry a already married man. There's no sacredness in it.
You need which point? Sorry.
So the point I'm making, right, and I'm mentioning it, Said, who's running now.
Now.
So,
Now.
yeah, the point I'm making
now.
right now,
Yeah, right now. How many
according to Islam, you can have 4 wives. You're not allowed me to finish.
How many women it costs a man? 18 women it costs.
I don't think you know what you're talking about, bro. I know what you're doing. I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't think you know
No,
what you're
don't
talking
worry.
about. Okay, so my point was to the fellow Muslim brother here, right? And we don't hate Muslims, we love Muslims. We think they're great people, right? Well, not all of them, there's some of them are just bit. But basically, long story short, right? When it comes to marriage, the point I was trying to make was, within the Christian paradigm, it makes sense that adultery is such a sin against God, because as it says in the book of Genesis, right, God created them male and female, He created man and woman, right? There is a sanctity within marriage, obviously, because the man and the woman both procreate and they create a life. Now, if we denigrate that to the point where a man can go outside and marry 4 women, what we have is an adulterous union. One, because this man will not be able to look after all those women financially, and even if he could, right, these women could become jealous. They will grow up with children who grow up envious, or who maintain the idea of it. You don't have a real union, because there isn't 2 partners. There's essentially 1 partner. There's essentially 4 partners, and what you have is basically like the children of those 4 partners not having their father figure with them, because the father figure has to be split between many different children, which is very unbearable. Also, the Islamic concept allows you to take sex slaves, right? They allow you to take sex slaves and whatever your right hand possesses. If this is the case, of course, then we have another problem for Allah saying that sleeping outside of marriage is adultery. What stipulates that adultery? Is it the fact that you're not married to this person? If that's the case, then what's the sanctity of marriage? It's still not answered, right? Marriage is sacred because it's a union between a male and a female. But if you don't have that, then you don't have any sanctity. You just have meaningless, lustful endeavors, which has led to the fall of the Western world. This is why Muslims, when they claim that Islam is the answer for the Western world, don't realize that under their own paradigm is the very thing that's led to the fall of the Western world, and single mothers themselves. Zawaj al-Muta will easily lead to single mothers. How do Muslims get over this? I don't understand, but God bless. Subscribe to my channel. I don't even know, man. Subscribe to John O'Cross. I don't even know.